Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to be in your midst today. You'll forgive my voice, I'm coming straight from Heathrow, so it's a little cracked this morning. But it is with an utmost sense of privilege that I deliver this address for this maiden conference of women in government and politics. Mine is entitled Women, Making Up the Numbers, Quotas, Self-Preparation, and Opportunities. But let me start by bringing you the very warm wishes, warm greetings as well, from my boss, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, whom we just heard speaking, and by whose leave I am here today, as well, of course, as the good people of Nigeria. And up front, as has already been done, let me personally extol his very uncommon courage, because it is uncommon. Because you see, he has already begun to implement some of the goals and ideals that we seek to achieve through this conference by, as you have heard, his appointment of over 30% of women to strategic positions within his administration. In preparing my remarks for this conference, I recalled an article that a staff of mine had read on the BBC Mundo, which is a Spanish version of the BBC website, which I found somewhat unsettling. The report was titled "The Heavy Load of the Mule Woman in Melilla." In essence, BBC Mundo reported that in conditions akin to some kind of semi-slavery, thousands of women every day haul heavy loads on their backs like mules at the border between Morocco and the Spanish enclave of Melilla. They are popularly known as mule women because they have taken the place of mules. And they carry out this rigorous task just to earn a living, because it assures them and their families the meal for that day. And the process continues ad infinitum. They do it just to survive. The mule women of Melilla are not alone. As woeful as this situation is, several variations of it are played out from dusk to dawn every day across the world. And as we all know, as women carry the burden of societies toiling to ensure a living, this is happening in many of our own societies and economies, even as we speak. Therefore, the mule woman is indeed more than a metaphor. It presents in very sharp relief not only the condition of the poor across the world, but also the abiding perception about women, even in the midst of an increasingly civilized world. And I say this very advisedly today. I say it particularly because, as has been said earlier, we have the next generation with us. And much of what I'm saying today is actually speaking to them. This is a perception which does not identify women with, let alone place them in positions of leadership. However, this is a perception that is changing rapidly, I'm happy to say, and in some cases, it has changed radically. This paradigm shift is happening because some countries have instituted a definitive policy of a quota system to ensure that more women are given opportunities in mainstream leadership roles in governance, as we know. By the way, I know that many have termed this process as a quota system, but I prefer the term parity scheme, because the term quota always suggests to me that persons are put in positions irrespective of their qualifications and or their abilities, which is not the case with most women. And in fact, as many of you know, in almost all these cases, the women placed in these positions are seasoned professionals or experts who have grown up through the ranks. And they have held leadership and management positions and have withstood the tests of both time and rigor. Hence, I call it a parity scheme. An Economist magazine article titled "Africa's Female Politicians, Women Are Winning" in November of this year reported that 11 African countries out of 36 across the world have clocked the 30% targeted mark in the lower houses of legislature in those countries. Also, an average of 1/5 of legislators in sub-Saharan African countries are women now. It also shows that Africa is actually leading in this domain. Consider, for instance, that only 18% in the American Congress are women, 23% in the United Kingdom. The scores across the world are still very much below par. As I stated at the beginning, in Nigeria, government appointments are well ahead of the global average in terms of parity considerations for women in 2011. Well, in 2011, Nigeria's President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan did not waste time in making good his campaign promises, and those included empowering, protecting, and creating more job opportunities for women, and that is actually going on as we speak. And of course, as we have said, giving over 30% of political appointments at ministerial and ambassadorial levels to women. And this is very encouraging and very inspirational to all of us who are part of it. So these parity schemes are extremely beneficial, as they actually help in correcting the ratios and gaps that have existed in male and female statistics when dealing with leadership and governance opportunities. However, I think it prudent to suggest that we do not focus on these programs and policies alone. As we strive to make up the numbers of women in leadership, in politics and governance, and to create access and opportunities, we need to also ensure that we have enhancement of our skills and abilities in a bid to ensure that we have even more to offer than is expected of us. We must educate, empower, and mentor more of our women. It goes without saying, to ensure that they have the compelling attributes and capabilities that make us as good as anyone else that may be considered to occupy any job or any office. And I say this again very, very seriously. It is critical for all women going up the ladders of leadership to remember to turn around and pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many women as possible up the ladder behind them. It is critical. It was Eleanor Roosevelt who once said, "A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she gets into hot water." As women, we all know that we have an innate elastic capacity to multitask under pressure, and we need to constantly bring that capacity to the fore. The world is a theater where success happens because opportunity meets hard work. That stage is getting increasingly set for the emergence of women at the highest levels of national responsibility. A respected and well-known American businessman and philanthropist, Mr. Howard Buffett, whom many of you will know of, said recently, when discussing governance and poverty reduction, that with challenges this big, we need women leaders to fix them. The billion-dollar Howard Buffett Foundation is focused on creating opportunities amongst the women folk in local communities all around the world through agriculture and various empowerment schemes. He argues that when development efforts, and specifically efforts that are designed to reduce poverty, are directed particularly at women, the impact is much more widespread. He argues that more than half of the world's subsistence farmers are women, and that when given the opportunity to educate and spread capacity amongst peasant folk communities, the women in most cases tend to spread that knowledge faster and wider across entire communities. In all our countries, it is already quite clear to us that local cooperative savings schemes, microcredit schemes, as you all know, and other development efforts that are directed at empowering women have delivered impressive results. And with all due respect, I must say at this point that we have found over the years, even in the IOCs, international oil companies and the multinationals, that when you give the microcredit schemes to men, they disappear in the local communities. The money goes into marrying more wives and it goes into drink and other things. But when you give it to the women who are the nurturers, who have to care for the families and are concerned about their children, they plow that money back in and return a profit each and every time. I mean, it is quite incredible. So Howard Buffett also bolsters this point in the same interview when he stated that beyond development, I feel we need far more women leaders in government, in business, in any and every important role. My dad, he said, who was Warren Buffett, first taught me that, and my mom first showed me why. And my wife, Devon, has been proving the wisdom of it ever since. Women are the most underutilized asset humanity has in the fight against hunger today, or for that matter, problem solving in just about any sector that I can think of. These were his words. And these are very measured thoughts drawn from the experiences of a 50-year-old American philanthropist, a director of Coca-Cola, who has served and still serves on the National Geographic Council, the World Wildlife Fund, and several other developmental organizations, and who was in October 2007, named an ambassador against hunger by the United Nations World Food Programme. So it is indeed said with a lot of thought and a lot of belief. Comrades and sisters, older and younger, having been strongly influenced and guided in my own personal journey by my late father, King Frederick Abie Agama, the Obotomedede of Atisa land, I deliberately used the example of Howard Buffett here to illustrate and buttress my persuasions that women have the innate and incomprehensible capacity to create an exponentially growing impact in their spheres of influence and far beyond those spheres. And this is why I insist that as women, we must rise and take our places, actualizing ourselves optimally and not wait for some grand intervention to hand us an opportunity. As women, we must develop an attitude of mind that enables us to, as much as possible, craft our own respective futures and help other women to do that as well. I am deeply persuaded that this is the era of our self-actualization as women. There has never been any era like it in the past, and we have strong global examples to prove that point. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has held office since 2005, successfully administering one of the leading economies of Europe. In Africa, our sister, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, who we just saw, has held office since 2006, successfully taking previously war-ravaged Liberia into a consistently growing economy where people are progressively better off than can ever be recalled in recent history. Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner of Argentina was also elected first female president of that country. President Dilma Rousseff of Brazil, elected January 2011. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra of Thailand, elected August 2011. Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt of Denmark, October 2011. Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller of Jamaica, elected January 2012. President Joyce Banda of Malawi, appointed in April 2012. And President Park Geun-hye of South Korea, elected earlier this year. These are just a fraction of the many female heads of nations who are doing particularly well at this critical time in the world's history. Whilst we have certainly not reached our optimal capacity in terms of achieving the highest possible positions of leadership, we have done well in the progressive march of history with regards to the sheer numbers of women currently represented in the highest offices of leadership. And this in itself is a clear indication of what is possible and yet of what still needs to be achieved. The world today is competitive and is increasingly being defined by what you have to offer rather than who you are, female or male. As I stated earlier, I serve as minister under the President Goodluck Jonathan-led administration. His transformation agenda was designed with clear foresight and is being implemented, as I said, with unusual courage to encompass the merits and abilities of qualified individuals, regardless of their gender. President Jonathan has led the process in recognizing in Nigeria the vital impact that women who have proven themselves in their various spheres of endeavor can make if given the opportunity, and he has successfully integrated this reality into his policies and governance. I would be remiss at this point if I ended my address without sharing some of my personal experiences very briefly. I graduated from Howard University, Washington, D.C., many moons ago with a 5-year professional architectural degree. I worked as a trainee architect, and then I moved on to construction, facilities, and project management, and returned to Nigeria in 1992 to join the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, where I worked my way over 16 years from a Job Group 6 position up to a Job Group 1 position, and then on to letter category job groups as the first female executive director in the over 70-year history of Shell in Nigeria. And I'm saying this particularly for our young ladies here today. The reason I'm reading this out is simply to let them know that there are no shortcuts to anything in life. If you see a shortcut, believe me, there is a problem there. It is not sustainable. In 2007, I was appointed the first ever minister of the newly formed Mega Ministry of Transportation, which at that time included aviation, maritime, civil works, roads and bridges, and the railways. Then Minister of Mines and Steel, and through to my current position as the first female Minister of Petroleum Resources in Nigeria. As a result of this, and Mr. President's courage, I am currently the only woman in history to date to lead a country's delegation to the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries Forum in Vienna, and I can assure you it was quite an experience the first time around. So these opportunities may appear to serve as feats of many firsts. In reality, as with most people, they are in fact the optimal expression of the kaleidoscope of various experiences, capabilities, and disciplines that were entrenched in me over the course of my life, as it has been with all of my sisters sitting here today. Gender in itself was never actually the dominant issue for me. I think survival was more of the focus. The truth is, nobody comes to your aid anymore just because you are a woman. It doesn't happen like that. If anything, it works against you at certain levels. Therefore, we must project ourselves on the basis of a set of existential values, and there will not be a one-size-fits-all label. It could never be that easy. Each of us, through stint of hard work, sheer determination, and that innate perceptive sensibility that can only emanate from the nurturing core of a woman, each of us will find our own path to opportunity and seize it when we get there. Life, education, your experiences, individual and collective, and the many challenges that you have surmounted throughout your life, which have shaped you, strengthened you, and wizened you. These are the ingredients of self-preparation. My own philosophy is simple. It has always been to tackle the situation head-on, bearing in mind that head-on has many permutations, and understanding always that the greatest opportunities usually come to us in the guise of seemingly great challenges. Recognizing the opportunity inherent in the face of a problem is the actual pertinent issue. And reaching out to grab and utilize that opportunity, therein lies your breakthrough. Ladies, our time is now. Let us seize and leverage the moment. I thank you for listening, and God bless you.